When asked the question, what makes a good marriage, the answer given by nearly 90% of the people that were asked this question in one particular survey said it takes being in love to make a good marriage. Then they ask a follow-up question, what is love? And all of a sudden it got all foggy. The answers weren't quite as clear. Dr. Les and Leslie Parrott in their book, Saving Your Marriage Before It Starts, a book that we're using as a resource for this series, say that most people really don't know what love is. And so they make this statement. They say, love is really like lightning. You may not know what it is, but you do know when it hits you. And you may have a hard time describing it. You may have a hard time kind of telling somebody else about it, but when it hits you, you know what it is. And most of us, we go, I think I'd be the same way. I don't know that I would really know how to describe love. It's not easy to pin down because love has all of these strange mix of opposites. It includes affection, but it also includes anger, excitement, but also boredom, stability, but also change, restriction, but also incredible freedom. And it has a way of just getting very, very confusing. And do you really feel like you've got a handle on what love is and what makes a strong relationship in your marriage? And if you're thinking about getting married, how do you know that it's really love? And how do you know that it's strong enough to marry him? Robert Sternberg is a Yale University psychologist. He actually developed a model that he calls the triangular model of love. And in his model, it has three different sides, three sides to the triangle. Let me describe to you each side of the triangle. The first side of the triangle he describes as being the passion side. And passion, he says, is the biological side of the triangle. It's this spine-tingling sensation that kind of moves us towards romance. It starts with hormones, and it's sensual and it's sexual, and it's characterized by these physiological arousals in us, this intense desire for physical affection. And he calls that the passion side of love. Song of Solomon actually describes this in the Bible. As Solomon describes, it's chapter 1, verse 2. And the writer of Song of Solomon says, kiss me again, for your love is sweeter than wine. And I think it's a she that's writing this, and she's actually saying, hey, this is that passion side of love. First side is passion. Second side to the triangle is actually described as intimacy. And intimacy is that emotional side of the love triangle. Intimacy fills that longing that every one of us have to be accepted, to just belong, for closeness. It's that idea of a best friend, or you might hear it as a soulmate. And we all want somebody that knows us better than anyone else and still accepts us anyway. Or we all want to know somebody better than anybody else knows them, and we still want to accept them anyway. Neil Clark, in his book, Finding the Love of Your Life, actually identifies the lack of intimacy this way. He says, the lack of intimacy is the number one enemy of marriage. Without intimacy, they will be isolated and alone, even while living under the same roof. He says, unless you have that ingredient in your relationship, then it's going to fail. You're going to struggle. You're going to be miserable in your relationship. First side of the triangle is passion. Second side is intimacy. The last side he describes as being contentment. That's kind of that cognitive, that willful side of the triangle. Commitment looks towards the future, a future that's uncertain, a future that's unknown, and it determines and says, you know what? No matter what the future holds, I'm going to be here. It kind of looks and it says, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know how you're going to change, how I'm going to change. I don't know what things are going to be like 10 years from now. Can't see the future, but you know what? I've made the determination. I'm promising that I will be there no matter what until death. And it's just saying, this is what it's going to be. Commitment is kind of making the statement saying, look, I love you because you are you. Not because of what you do, not because of how I happen to feel today. I'm just going to love you no matter what. And so Robert Sternberg says that when it comes to that relationship, it's a triangle. And the stronger the triangle, the thicker it is in each area, the more passion, the more intimacy, the more commitment there is, the stronger the relationship is going to be. And this is the level that all of us want to achieve. And he actually says most marriages achieve this level of love for a moment. But he says it doesn't often stay because it requires work. It requires effort to get to this level, but it also requires effort to stay at this level. So let me give you some quick steps and just kind of say, how do we make sure that the passion stays strong for us? So real practical things. One, Practice meaningful touch. And when I say this, I'm not talking about sexual touch, but I'm just talking about touch. Somehow touch speaks oftentimes more eloquently than words. And so it's just that touch to say, hey, I'm here, I care about you, I love you. I mean, the kind of thing for Ruth and I, it's holding hands. It's holding hands for us every time that we pray, and so it doesn't matter where we are. It's holding hands when we pray. It's kind of one of the things that I love that Ruth does. I open the car door for her every time, and the reason why I do that is every time I open the car door, I get a kiss. And so it's like, okay, it's worth opening the car door for Ruth as I do that. It's giving hugs and kisses when we leave home, when we come home, and just constantly that little sense of touch. It's when we're lying in bed and we're sleeping, and it's just reaching over and just, hey, just to know you're there with a foot, whatever, and just, hey, we're here. And it's just that little sense of touch. Meaningful touch, mutually enjoyable experiences. And saying, are you constantly looking for just fun things to do in the relationship? It's not a matter of need, it's a matter of just doing things. So it's the romantic dinners, it's going to the movies, going to the theater, it's vacations, it's nights away, where what you're doing is working so that your spouse associates fun experiences with you. Where when they think about you or they think of fun things, it's, oh, I did that with him, I did that with her. And so it's just mutually enjoyable experiences. And if you're not doing that, and if you're thinking, we don't need to go out tonight, we don't need that dinner, we don't need to go to a movie, we don't need to go spend the night someplace else in a romantic giveaway, you don't need to, but yeah, you do need to. If you're gonna maintain passion in your relationship. And so what can you do to continue just to make your experience exciting? Or complimenting each other daily on a regular basis. Maybe one of the most important things in order to have passion and romance in your relationship is for both the husband and the wife to feel as though they are special. And so it's you saying, what can I do to make her? What can I say to make him feel special today? Cultivate passion, but also cultivate intimacy. How do you do that? Because intimacy is really this relationship where you're being best friends as well as lovers. And so you're sharing dreams and you're sharing interests and you're sharing your fears and you're sharing your hopes. And so to build that sense of intimacy, first of all, it's gonna mean you need to spend time with each other. So make sure that you're spending lots of time together. Sometimes I listen to people talk and describe their situation. Sometimes it can't be helped. But I listen to your schedules and you're never together. So you're at work and you're running after work, or you're both working different schedules and you don't hardly ever cross paths, and intimacy is gonna be a struggle unless you're spending time together. Spend time together, listen with a third ear. This is probably the one that's hardest for me. Listening with a third ear really just means don't just listen to the facts, but listen for the feelings behind the story as well. What really is he describing? What really is she describing? What feelings are they trying to convey? Spend time together, listen with a third ear, practice unconditional acceptance. Somehow help them know that, you know what? You don't have to walk on eggshells around me. Help them to know that you're not gonna get upset with everything that happens. Nothing drains a relationship of intimacy faster than this anxiety that somehow I'm gonna upset the other person greatly. And so you begin to practice unconditional acceptance, even though they're not perfect, and you're not perfect either. Unconditional acceptance, focus on commonalities. This one is always amazing to me because I listen to couples that are struggling in their marriages, and they'll talk to me and they'll tell me about their differences, and yet when you step back, 95% of their lives, they love the same things and they have things in common. It's that 5% that are different, and they spend all their time focusing on the 5% differences. You say, if you step back and figure out, okay, what do you have in common that you can begin to celebrate and focus on where it can be different? And then finally, the parents say, explore spiritual terrain together. When you begin to add the spiritual element to the relationship, that's where all of a sudden you develop that bond, that sense of a soulmate in your relationship. Cultivate passion, cultivate intimacy, then you cultivate commitment. Commitment is really that determination that our marriage is gonna persist no matter what. Where you say, we will do whatever it takes to make this relationship work no matter what. And it's a determination, it's a decision, a determination that this is going to work. 3 doctors were studying 6,000 marriages, 3,000 divorces, and they concluded this, They said there may be nothing more important in a marriage than the determination that it shall persist. With such determination, individuals force themselves to adjust. And as they adjust, they say that they can accept situations which would seem sufficient grounds for a breakup if continuation of the marriage was not the prime objective. In other words, they say, when you determine that this thing is going to work, then you put up with things that you might not others. You find ways to work around things that you might not otherwise find ways to work around. Another way to say it, commitment is the mortar that holds the stones of marriage in place. And without commitment, it's all going to crumble. It's going to fall apart. That's what the research and researchers are telling us. My prayer for you this week is that as you use your energies wisely, you would begin to experience that dance of love where there'll be those graceful moments where you go, oh man, okay, this is better than I ever thought it would be possible.